Let's get into the papers.
All right, I have the Daily Guide. The banner headline this morning: SML sues OSP over equipment seizure. Then there's Ghana Air Force helicopter crash, and the chopper lost altitude in bad weather. That's according to the report that we all listened to yesterday from the presidency. That's also on the front page of the Daily Guide. Now, EoCO has arrested the ex-BOST CEO, Provencal, and that is also here with a picture of him on the front page. And then there's a story of what was unfolding in Parliament earlier this week. It says Ayariga fights Afenyomakin after vetting showdown. I don't know what they mean by fights. I'm sure it didn't come to actual blows, sure. But there are pictures here of both of them on the front page of the Daily Guide. That's it.
And more from Parliament. If you go to the Daily Graphic, Majority Leader cites Minority Leader for contempt of Parliament. And other stories, the lead story for the Daily Graphic is on the helicopter incident. And it says, poor visibility caused the crash. There is a photo of Captain Paul Fojo, retired, who is a member of the committee presenting the report. And Galamsey degrades over 60,000 hectares of forest land. This is according to a new study. We'll give you more details. And farmers, processors protest lack of markets for locally produced grains.
I have the Ghanaian point here. Mahama declares no retreat in Galamsey war. Harsh weather conditions, not mechanical faults, caused the fatal military helicopter crash. That's according to the investigative committee. There's the talk also on the front page here about EoCO arresting the former BOST CEO, Edwin Provencal, at the Kotoka International Airport. We understand that he was en route to Maputo, and that's where, of course, EoCO grabbed him. But Bagbing apologizes to the judiciary over vetting chaos, pledges to uphold democracy and also mutual respect in Parliament. And the Catholic bishops, they are also warning that inequality, corruption threaten Ghana's moral fabric. These are some of the stories you'd find on the Ghanaian point this morning.
Now, if you go to the news center, minority fears judicial subversion in new CJ vetting. Adverse weather safety gaps cause helicopter tragedy. This is according to the report. And Ghana to give birth to tech unicorn through MTN support for startups, shared infrastructure to help innovators scale globally. This is according to Ibrahim Mitchell, the Chief Digital Officer of MTN Ghana. And the central bank is in the news. Central banks must earn trust, not just set policy. Dr. Siama, he was speaking at the event that hosted other central banks from Africa and the UK. And Asante honored by GJ for exemplary leadership.
So the new finder says that banks are beginning to scrap the 3% FX withdrawal charge. That's what they've confirmed on their front page this morning. But it's a little bit more on the tax system, because GRA is now launching the modified tax system and sustainable tax education program. Also, the fiscal relief tops industry requests in 2026 budget. That's a new survey by KPMG, just gauging the thoughts of experts and stakeholders ahead of the budget presentation. And then the CD is also cooling off and trading somewhere around 11.90. That's the claim by the new finder this morning.
Okay, can we go online now?
Now, if you go to my Joe Online, a Chief Justice guided by feelings is dangerous. This is John Boedu speaking. Tension in Ogbojo. Immigration officials attempt to remove U.S. deportees from hotel by using force. We've seen videos of that online. The full story is on my Joe Online. Refuse collector jailed 10 years for attempting to rob U.S. diplomat. And John Boedu blasts Parliament over CJ vetting, saying we're endorsing illegality. Abu Jinapo raises serious issues about the Ewoya lithium mining lease agreement between the government of Ghana and Barari DV Limited. And woman suspected of lacing local drinks with cannabis appears in court. We also told that Jordan Kudus have been left out of Otoado's 22-man squad for the Asia friendlies. When Fentio comes, we'll get more details on that. And Mahama unveils record 30.8 billion big push in 2026 budget. And in healthcare, physician assistant in court for allegedly practicing as doctor without license. If you go to
It's good. It's good. He's been found out. If you're not a medical doctor, don't say you're one.
Yeah. And more from health. This is City Newsroom. HEFRA, which is the Health Facilities Regulatory Agency, has ordered the immediate closure of the Tamale Technical University Hospital over serious safety violations. That's on citynewsroom.com. IGP deploys over 100 police officers for special operation in Ashanti region. Bank of Ghana introduces new forex operations framework. And pilot aircraft exonerated in Ghana helicopter crash probe. This is Patrick Sogbojo speaking. And Martin Amidu was fair and effective. Ejabin has disappointed. This is according to Freddie Blay. And Ama Kofi Boa presents revised lithium deal to Parliament. The big push story is also being highlighted here. 2026 budget, over 30 billion Ghana cedis allocated for big push agenda.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I've always advocated the construction of our roads.
Yeah.
Because, look, we know that if we construct first-class roads, it would actually open the country up. And many of us would travel around the country. And once we do, we spend. And so once you get in... Look, I know Kojo is going to talk about this, but when I was in Ho for the 75th anniversary of Malu School, the Volta Regional Minister, who was my mate at the Institute of Local Government Studies, James Gunu, made a point that what he had seen, convinced him that alumni associations had a role to play in the local economies. But this is what I got from it. What I got from it was that because people had traveled to Ho over the weekend, all hotels booked, restaurants, it actually helped the local economy of Ho. But you see, there are some people who even had complained. So imagine if Ho had the best of roads, okay? Not just from Sokode to Ho, but, throughout the stretch, you had the best of roads. A lot of people can actually get in there, do all they want to do. And once they get in there, they would spend.
Yeah.
It actually leads to an increase in the services provided by indigents of that particular place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we do this. And, saying that I am happy that my hometown roads in Poho is going to be captured in the 2026 budget.
Yeah, 30 billion for big push.
Yeah.
And if you think about the banking sector cleanup and related matters, we spent also about 30 billion to do that.
Yeah.
But people have still not received their monies and
we have still not recovered the about 26 billion in assets that we tax the receivers to go and collect.
Yeah.
The last time they had collected less than 2 billion. Wow.
Anyway, more stories. The big story this morning is the helicopter incident, and the Daily Graphic leads with it. All the other papers lead with it. Kester Bram Crunchy writes for the Daily Graphic that the tragic crash of the Ghana Air Force helicopter on August 6, 2025, which claimed the lives of all 8 persons on board, has been officially attributed to a sudden and severe weather phenomenon known as downdrafts. This conclusion was reached by the high-powered Accident Investigation Board, constituted by President John Dramani Mahama, which presented its final report to the President at the Jubilee House in Accra yesterday.
And, some people actually have said that, so that actually confirms, you saw this, AI-powered video right after the accident, showing, right after the crash, showing the aircraft hitting a tree and all of that. But for me, there are still questions. Questions because, okay, the weather was bad and then we set off. But at the time we set off from Accra, did we know the weather in Obuasi? Do we have equipment that can tell that, okay, on the stretch, this is how the weather is going to be throughout? If we did, why did they fly? If we did not, why don't we have it?
We also heard in the report an explanation of why things may have turned out differently if they had certain equipment on board. Some of the equipment that they mentioned was navigation equipment that allows some helicopters to fly even when the pilots cannot see the ground. So they can fly through clouds, through bad weather, because that equipment guides them. And, you saw a certain visual representation of the path that the helicopter should have gone through. It would have taken them through some clouds. Unfortunately, because they didn't have the equipment that would have allowed them to fly safely through those clouds, the pilots had to keep sight of ground. So they avoided the clouds, which brought them along a different path, which is also demonstrated in the diagram that was shown. So that different path that they took made them fly a little bit lower. Bear in mind, these are pilots from Takoradi. This is not a regular route. So they really had to go by all of their senses. And the sad part is that the flight recorder tells them that there was no pitch. Pitch is what you get when you move the joystick of the helicopter to pilot it. So when you pull it towards you, the helicopter flies upwards. When you push it away from you, the helicopter flies downwards. There was no pitch. That means the pilot didn't attempt to fly higher or lower. They were moving on an even altitude. But for some reason, this downdraft brought them lower. So the helicopter actually moved lower than it should without the pilot moving it lower. I don't know if I'm making sense.
I get you.
Yeah. So that's basically how they are explaining how this helicopter ended up so low that it ended up clipping a ridge line.
Winston, I think we're taking a lot of things for granted in this country, and just as you're saying, so many questions unanswered, right? The investigative team is now confirming to us for the very first time that the chopper that was being flown with these VVIPs was way beyond its due maintenance period. The actual time, according to this investigative committee, is that they were due for maintenance as of May 2025. Who asked for the extension of the days? You asked for an extension of days to about a 90-day period, we understand, according to the committee. That 90-day period, if you're doing the permutation, in the month of August, why would you fly an aircraft that is way beyond its maintenance schedule, and not just beyond the maintenance schedule, but just 12 days away from the extended expired maintenance schedule that you have? It's clearly unacceptable, and of course we may have a situation where some families who are aggrieved, just based on this address that was done by the investigative committee, may sue the state, may sue the Ghana Armed Forces for pure negligence. Because if you're really paying attention to the maintenance schedule, clearly you cannot tell me that you'll be flying VVIPs 12 days after an extended expiration time for you to service an aircraft. It simply should not happen, and we should be asking more questions. The armed forces should be telling us more. All we're getting is that we need to buy more aircrafts as of now. They need to answer a number of questions. And yesterday we heard from was it Sapon Jr., one of the I think that's the relative or the son of one of the persons that we lost in the crash, saying that there are more questions to be answered. And that is what we need. We need the investigative team to be more candid with the people of Ghana, and at some point also put the blame where it ought to be. That some people failed to do their job. They just didn't do a good job. I don't think it was a good job.
Well, we did hear yesterday, because this question came up. I think one of the journalists there was asking about this maintenance schedule thing. And we heard retired Captain Kojo say that seeking an extension is normal. I agree with you, Blessed, that we need to understand a bit better. What makes it normal? If a helicopter needs a certain maintenance to be done after 10 years, why is it normal to say, we won't do it, give us some more time, we'll do it later? Why is that normal? And how does it can they explain to us how that does not affect the function of the helicopter? I would like to know the answer to that.
And that's my point. And you can even use the analogy of an expired product, for instance. If a product has an expiry date on it, you may even have hesitation. With just a month to expiration, right?
Yeah.
Winston, you have hesitation.
You see,
so that's my challenge with the whole maintenance culture in this country. We are not paying attention to detail, and we are not even meeting standards. That the investigative team is just giving away a whole lot that
And
we
you see-
ought to be demanding answers to.
And you see, Blessed, you make a very important point. And Kojo, I like your point you make about, look, normally helicopters would fly under what you'd call visual flight rules. Okay, so that's, in that case, pilots would use their eyes to fly. Now they must see the horizon, landmarks, and other aircraft clearly. And that kind of system is actually best for, clear days, recreational flying, and when a pilot wants to visually navigate and enjoy the scenery. And people would tell you, the experts would tell you that the key requirement would be that the weather must meet specific minimums such as ceilings greater than 3,000 feet and visibility greater than 5 miles. Then it brings us to the other point. You can fly under instrument flight rules. In this case, the expectation is that the pilots will fly the aircraft based on information from instruments inside the cockpit and instructions from air traffic control. And this is the standard for commercial and professional flights.
And in fact, in that briefing, the man just disclosed that on-ground facilities for such cooperative flying would not work because you don't even have the infrastructure across some of these
But that is
dotted
where
areas.
the challenge is, because if
What? I'm just not buying the idea
Exactly.
solely of weather. I just don't get that. I'm
Blessed,
just not buying the idea
just to
of weather.
buttress the point you made.
Yeah.
Okay, you go ahead. Make
No,
sure.
I was just saying that I'm not buying the idea of weather simply because someone also failed to do their job. We need to know who requested for the extension, why we didn't pay attention to the expiration. In fact, there are families involved now who are sad, and just listening to the address, I was like, is that all there is? And the only recommendation we're getting is that we need new aircrafts for the military. That's the end of the story.
Just to buttress the point you've made. So, we all knew, that around that time there was going to be poor visibility. The Meteo had warned us, at the beginning of the year when the rainy season started. So my concern, just to add up to what you've made, the point you made, my concern is that under the circumstance, if you know that your only aircraft that you have and your system doesn't support that, you never fly when the weather is poor. Or you get aircraft or helicopters that can actually support the kind of weather we are in. If you cannot, you don't fly. Anyway, let's get into other stories. Kojo.
Okay, so I'll take you to page 13 of the Daily Graphic. Galamsey degrades over 60,000 hectares of forest land. That's according to a new study that has been published. This story is by Timothy Nyangbe and Kandila Kunedu, and it says more than 60,000 hectares of forest land, equivalent to 84,000 football fields, have been destroyed by illegal mining. And this is according to remote sensing data from the Ghana Space Science and Technology Institute. On the same page, farmers processors have presented a petition to the Northern Regional Minister. They say they have over 1 million tons of paddy rice valued at 5 billion Ghana cedis, which is unsold in the various farming communities, and they are seeking help to deal with 5 billion Ghana cedis.
5 billion
worth of paddy rice in the various farming communities.
Oh, okay.
And they are basically saying that the announcement by the government that buffer stock will buy a certain quantity is just not enough, and that we should stop the importation of rice because we have enough rice locally and maize locally, and the farmers are struggling. Yesterday we saw videos online of onions that had gone bad on the Winneba Road, the Kaswa Road, and there's a lot happening. There's also the conversation about egg gluts.
And I've seen a post from you on Facebook. Dehydrate them, store them, and at the right time. I've seen powdered egg. Someone does that. We'll talk more about that.
A critical thing we must learn.
Yeah,
is from Pharaoh and Joseph.
We'll
How
about
they
that.
stored in the period of abundance and released.
Okay.
Yeah.